Our next speaker is Dr. Graham Dickson. Graham is a professor emeritus at Royal Roads University, and just last year he received a Distinguished Leadership Award from the Canadian College of Health Leaders, and was recently honored for his leadership by the Consortium of Accredited Health Organizations in India. Graham is the CEO of LEEDS Global, and he's also the research advisor for the Canadian Health Leadership Network. He has published numerous peer-reviewed articles on leadership, edited 3 special editions of the Leadership in Health Services journal dedicated to medical leadership, and is the author of the first and the second editions of the book, Bringing Leadership to Life in Health, Leads in a Caring Environment. And Graham is going to speak to us today about integrative medicine, which demands integrative leadership. Graham, the floor is yours. Graham, I think you're muted. If you could mute yourself.
Thank you, Reza. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that I'm speaking today from the traditional lands of the Lekwungen Nation here in Victoria, British Columbia, and it's my privilege to live and work on their home territory. I also want to acknowledge that I'm speaking to a group of leaders, and I'm listening to all of you talk about the leadership that you are practicing, be it at a clinical level or be it at a policy level. And what I'm going to say now is going to focus primarily on leadership as a function, as something you do to influence others, to improve their state of life, be that clinically or at a policy level, like Mark was talking about this morning. Jesse, I wonder if you could put up the slide deck. Essentially, I'm going to talk to you about 3 things. First, what integrative, in my mind, what integrative leadership is. And I think you're going to see some themes running through the conversations this morning that will resonate with that. Secondly, I'm going to introduce you to LEEDS very quickly, which is simply a framework that is used for developmental purposes to help people grow their leadership capacity. And third, I want to introduce you to a program that we are actually running in India in partnership. That's a partnership between LEEDS Global and the Canada-India Network Society to develop leadership for health professionals in India. Next slide, please, Jesse. I was always captured by wisdom from the East, be it from India or China, and have done a fair bit of studying there. And I wanted to share with you a quote from Confucius, who you well know was responsible for growing and helping civil servants learn how to serve their populace. And this quote to me captures much of what integrative leadership is. And I'm going to read it because it's important as a foundation for everything that I think can do, and I think that is found in LEEDS. Those who anciently wished to exemplify illustrious virtue to the whole world. And I would say that all of you are trying to do that in your efforts this morning. First, ordered their own states, policymaking. Wishing to order well their states, they first regulated their families. Internal. Wishing to regulate their families, they cultivated their characters. Deeply personal. Wishing to cultivate their characters, they first rectified their hearts. Wishing to rectify their hearts, they first made their thoughts sincere, mind, body, and spirit. Wishing to make their thoughts sincere, they first extended their knowledge to the utmost. This extending of the knowledge to the utmost lay in the investigation of things. Self to system. Leadership is about the internal work of self as it interacts with a system, a health system, an economic system, a hospital system, as the case may be. And this quote is fundamental to understanding the LEEDS framework itself. Next slide, please, Jesse. A second element of the LEEDS framework and of health leadership is, of course, the notion that health leadership is different to leadership in any other endeavor. We are here to care for others. Leaders have to care for their staff, as well as the public. Providers care for the public. And this has to be a fundamental concept around which integration flows. We're integrating things for the purpose of caring for others. Next slide, please, Jesse. Now, those are both quotes from the past, if you like, but I would say that they capture the essence of leadership that's been part of the human condition for a long time. The only difference is today we work in a different context. And today's leadership tries to do three things: integrate services. Integration of whatever services have to be there for the patients, families, and communities we're trying to support. We have to care for the people who deliver those services. As leaders, that's a fundamental responsibility. And thirdly, we have to help all of you do what you're trying to do to create system change. Next slide, please, Jesse. The LEEDS framework is a framework that is evidence-based and was developed and has been around for 10 to 15 years and is being used across the country of Canada and internationally to articulate what that caring leadership looks like in practice. For example, when you heard Mark talk this morning about partnerships and the pentagram model, look under the phrase develop coalitions and you'll see the language purposely build partnership networks to achieve results. And his model does that. Much of what you've talked about personal change falls under the LEEDS self-domain. And Jesse, if you run through the circles on the slide are aspects of leadership that have been truly highlighted during COVID. I'm not going to explain them, but COVID has brought these really to light very fundamentally. Next slide, please, Jesse. And as you know, my colleague, Dr. Garg, who indeed was the force that took me to India in the first place, and is my partner in the effort in India, has written a very nice piece in our book about the relationship between the LEEDS framework, the 5 domains of the LEEDS framework, and yoga, which of course he believes strongly and many of you believe strongly and I believe strongly is an integrating force on many levels. And that is what Dr. Garg has written about in our book. Next slide, please, Jesse. Now, just to let you know that LEEDS isn't just in Canada. In fact, LEEDS is being used in Belgium for the purposes of implementing quality and safety nationwide. We're in India, as we indicated. There's a version of the LEEDS framework in Australia, and we're also working with South Africa to help develop medical leadership in South Africa. And indeed, because of its evidence base, LEEDS is quite, how would I say it, popular with physicians because they can see the evidence behind what good leadership looks like. Next slide, please, Jesse. So this has given rise to a program, and one of the themes you've heard a lot about this morning, all of the different models and frameworks that have been presented require people to learn. And we have to learn leadership too. And so in partnership with a consortium of accredited health organizations in India, we've developed a program that we're offering there that is a series of micro-learning modules in a self-directed way. And I'll just let you know that that's happening. And that's what we're also working with South Africa to do. So in closing, let me thank Arun for having me on the call. And I certainly welcome any questions that you might have. And please extrapolate some of the great thinking you've been doing and think about how does that extrapolate into the really good practices of effective leadership. Thank you.
Minnie, if I could just ask one thing. Thank you, Graham, for so eloquently describing LEEDS Global. Friends, it gives me immense pleasure to recognize my dear friend, Graham Dickson. Canada India Network Society is a virtual organization which brings people together, and we work with our partners and collaborators. You heard about Sehat and Sahi, which came out of CINI 2010 and now functioning in an institutionalization of that. Graham is helping us in institutionalizing leadership. Ethics, professionalism, and good practices are key for India to go forward. And Graham has done so much work to make it happen. So Graham, I just want to recognize what we have developed together and with the consortium, and our ambition is very large to take this to India at all multiple levels. And hope you will all support us as we go forward. So thank you, Graham, for sharing this. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Dr. Garg. And I reiterate, echo what Dr. Garg is saying there as well, Graham. Graham, if you wouldn't mind just, very, very briefly, giving us a little bit of a more detailed update as to the work that you're doing in India with LEEDS.
Yes, what we have done is taken the LEEDS framework itself, which is 5 domains of leadership, 4 capabilities in each domain. And they've been created from a systemic lens of a process. So they honor the concepts that Mark was bringing forward earlier about health as a system, and you have to connect a system for it to function. So each of those 5 domains have now been, how would I say it, transmogrified in some ways into a series of 1.5 to 2 hour treks, online, self-directed treks that consist of video clips, articles, workplace-based challenges for the person to work through in the context of their workplace, and assignments to be done to demonstrate their mastery of the topic of that micro-learning module. So with the CAHO group, the Consortium of Accredited Health Organizations, we worked with them to customize our thinking around LEEDS to create treks that they're now offering through a program on their website. And we are working with approximately 10 individuals now. We just launched the program. And they are working their way through 20 such treks, which will then give them a certificate from LEEDS Global and CINS and CAHO.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And probably what we can do is get the link to that website, Graham, and we'll ask Jessie to see if she can put that onto our chat here in case anybody is interested in going to that website.
Sure, I would be happy to do that.
Thank you very much.